Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to our webinar with Megan White from the Ptap program. I'll let her introduce herself in a couple of minutes here. Just wanted to go ahead and get started. For those of you who are watching this live today, you should get an email about an hour or so after the presentation from GoToWebinar, and it will have the link in there for your evaluation and certificate. If you don't get it for some reason, just go ahead and shoot me an email. And then if you're watching this in Enduring format, you should have access to that link as well. So now we will talk about our disclosures real quick. As you know, we are giving contact hours for this presentation, so we have our required disclosures. Megan, if you wouldn't mind advancing to that slide for me. Thank you so much. So there's no conflict of interest among anyone with the ability to control content. To receive your contact hours, we ask that you view the webinar and submit that evaluation form. We are accredited as a provider, and if you're watching this in Enduring format, it expires on February 28th of 20. And now I will pass it over to Megan and let her introduce herself.
Sure, thank you so much. I'm Dr. Megan White. I am with the ANCC Ptap program, the American Nurses Credentialing Center Practice Transition Accreditation Program. So now you know why we use our acronym since our name is so long. ANCC is actually part of the ANA Enterprise, or the American Nurses Association Enterprise. So the ANA Enterprise has a relationship with the Ohio Nurses Association, and we were asked if we'd be willing to present a program today about our Ptap accreditation. We're happy to do that. We're excited. The space is growing so much in terms of accrediting transition to practice programs for nurses. And so I'm excited just to be here with you today to talk about our accreditation. So any of the information shared today is just intellectual property of the ANCC Ptap program. If you have any questions about our accreditation or the resources that are available, you can reach out to us directly and we can help you if need be. So what we're going to talk about is just the history of accreditation. We'll look at the current options for accreditation of transition to practice programs through the American Nurses Credentialing Center. Our department is the Ptap department within ANCC. We'll inspect the elements of accreditation in terms of our process of program review. And then we'll talk about the future state of accreditation, since I've already hinted that we're growing significantly in this space. So just first, to start out with the history and current status. Transition, if we look at the definition, is a planned comprehensive period of time where the registered nurse can acquire knowledge and skills to deliver safe patient care. This definition actually comes directly out of the IOM report that was released in 2011, The Future of Nursing. This was a pivotal report released by the IOM that called out the need to develop more comprehensive programs where the transition to practice was better defined and the support time period was better integrated in terms of the resources that are needed to help grow and provide nurses with tools to manage the transition to practice period. The landscape of clinical nursing education began really to take into account reports like the IOM around 2011, around 2012, and our commission at that time on accreditation and our board of directors at ANCC called out the need for a department to be developed within our enterprise that would accredit transition to practice programs to help establish standards for these programs to kind of live up to. So the release of the 2011 IOM report was a pivotal moment in the landscape of accreditation and a pivotal moment really in nursing literature and nursing education, where you saw a shift to move beyond just the traditional orientation program, which was loosely defined and organized, and move more in terms of what we're seeing now with these highly developed, highly integrated transition periods. So accreditation then is really a voluntary process. It's not required. It's a peer review type of process where the institution or the program itself determines they're ready to be evaluated based on a set of criteria. We look at your structures, your processes, some of the outcomes of your programs through the accreditation review. So again, it's not required. It's something that you enter into if you feel your program's ready or just based on your organizational needs. Only recently did the American Academy of Nursing release a policy statement stating that they felt it was time to require nurse residencies for newly licensed registered nurses. That actually came out, that position statement came out in May of June of last year in the Nursing Outlook issue of 2018. So that was the first position statement to strongly affirm that residencies should be required for newly licensed registered nurses. At the end of that publication, if you look in the recommendations section, the authors, which would be Good et al., they recommended in their closing argument that those programs be accredited. So they took that extra step to say, we want you to have a program and we want you to help transition nurses in the first year of practice and throughout other transitions that we'll talk about that can occur. However, it's more important as well, that secondary piece is that your program be accredited to determine that it lives up to a set of criteria. We're the largest accreditor of transition to practice programs in nursing. So I'll focus on our Ptap department and our processes. However, there are other accreditors available as options if you're looking to get your program accredited. So I do say that so that you would know you have options in this space. We're growing by the minute, we're the largest, but you want to look at what accreditation criteria and what processes meet your organization's needs. So just a quick Ptap history lesson. We talked about that 2011 release of the IOM report. In 2012 to 13, what we were doing at ANCC was we conducted a content expert panel to help us create our first set of Ptap standards, and we began piloting those standards with 3 organizations. So in 2014, we piloted our accreditation program process. At this time, with our 3 types of programs, we were conducting site visits as part of our accreditation criteria. We'll talk about the fact that we no longer conduct site visits, we conduct virtual visits now, but when we originally piloted, we wanted to trial both to see what worked. In 2015, we accredited our 3 pilot programs and revised our standards to reflect really what was a significant amount of growing evidence around transition to practice programs in nursing at that time. In 2016, our current standards were released and implemented. So that would be our 2016 Ptap manual. In 2017, we had a lot of firsts in terms of the types of programs we were accrediting. So we accredited our first home health agency, our first federal agency, and our first federally qualified healthcare center. 2018 really then was just a tremendous growth year for us. I think we did our growth rate out once and it was over 300% in 2018. So we had over 50 applicants and we were implementing the 2016 standards and review process with those applicants. So Ptap this year will celebrate its 5th year in existence as an ANCC department that has accredited programs. So really, what are the elements today of Ptap accreditation? We will accredit 3 different transition to practice programs for nurses. So these are 3 separate options or types of programs that our Ptap department would accredit. The first is an RN residency program. This definition is just out of our manual. You can see an RN residency is for nurses with less than 12 months of experience. They're designed to help them gain knowledge, skills, and professional behaviors to deliver safe patient care. So getting all of the tools in their tool belt that we know that nurses need or struggle to gain in that early transition to practice. The program itself must be at least 6 months in length, and it encompasses what we'll look at are our 6 domains. So it encompasses organizational orientation, practice-based learning, and then supplemental activities. So when we talk about a residency or a fellowship, it's really the whole thing. It's nursing orientation, it's organizational onboarding, it's support at the bedside, the extra type of social activities or content that's developed. So it's all of it in terms of the residency. The next type of program we'll credit would be an RN fellowship, and this is for a different type of learner. So these are planned or comprehensive programs where currently licensed registered nurses with 6 or more months of experience can gain the knowledge, skills, abilities they need when they go through a different period of transition. The program may include organizational orientation, and it must include that practice-based learning and supplemental activities. So RN fellowships for us, think about the periods of transition you went through after you became a newly licensed registered nurse. So I myself can think of when I transitioned into the educator role in my healthcare organization, when I transitioned into a management role in my healthcare organization, and just what supports were available for me in that new transition. Oftentimes, we're finding RN fellowships are an area that organizations are needing to grow in. So we're doing better at supporting the learning that occurs in the first year. We're not doing as well in terms of supporting the life cycle of the registered nurse as he or she transition into other roles. Then the third and final type of program that we accredit in Ptap is the APRN Fellowship. These are, again, just planned comprehensive programs for certified and currently licensed advanced practice registered nurses, where they develop the knowledge, skills, abilities to deliver care in their new practice role. Again, that type of program may include organizational orientation, but it must include the practice-based learning experiences and supplemental activities. So those are our 3 types of programs that we accredit. Let's look at some statistics and I'll show you what our whole portfolio looks like in terms of numbers. We have 72 accredited programs. We'll have more, so that's why I wrote as of 1/29. Our commission just voted, for example, on 12 programs, and they'll all achieve accreditation. And we just voted on Friday, and the programs will be notified and announced on our website in the coming weeks. So this number is going to rapidly grow. We know that by the end of 2019, we will reach over 100 credited programs. There's a chance that we may reach over 150. So if you're looking for an updated number in terms of how many, that information can best be found on our website. The breakdown of the by type of learner or type of program, we have 59 accredited RN residencies across the United States. So you can see that that is our largest category of accredited types of programs. 3 accredited RN fellowships. So by far, like I have mentioned already, this is an area that nursing needs to develop some types of programs to help the lifelong cycle of the registered nurse as we transition into different areas. And then we have 10 accredited APRN fellowships. 86% of accredited programs then for us are RN residencies. That's where the majority lie. However, a good chunk are APRN fellowships and RN fellowships. And so as we talk today just about our manual criteria and our processes, please know that there's options to accredit different types of programs. So I usually speak more generally just about your learner and meeting your learner needs so that you're aware of your targeted learner, whether they're an RN resident, an APRN fellow, or an RN fellow. We have 52 applicants in our cycles that are currently open. That's why I mentioned to you we already know what our projection in 2019 will be in part. We know that we have 47 new RN residency applicants and 3 new APRN fellowship applicants. So again, we know that we're going to continue to grow more in the RN residency space, and the APRN and RN fellowship space will grow a little bit slower over the years. Our August and November cycles are still open for 2019, so that's why we can't fully project the landscape. Our August submission cycle will open for applications on April 1st, and our November cycle will open for applications on July 1st. So those are still yet to come. And of interest to this group, 60% of all of our Ptap accredited programs are from magnet facilities. So 60% of that 72 are magnet. What that tells us is we have almost half that are not from magnet facilities. So we're seeing a lot of growth in organizations who may not have as many resources as organizations with those extra support services in place, which is good. It shows that our standards are applicable to many different types of organizational settings. 31% have no affiliation with an ANCC credential, meaning they don't have Pathway to Excellence or Magnet, or they're not an accredited provider through CE. So again, we know that we're reaching other types of organizations with our accreditation. 75%, so almost the majority there, are homegrown programs. That's a term that we use to mean they're not using a vendor curriculum within their organization. So vendor curriculums are curriculums that you can purchase and implement, usually a residency program within your hospital or healthcare group. So there are over, I think, 10 types of vendor curriculums for RN residencies. They're sold by companies like Vizient, Versant, HealthStream, and those are things that can be purchased and used kind of in part or in whole within an organization. However, only a small subsection of our accredited programs have purchased and used. Most have developed their own robust program that meets their organization's needs. This is our conceptual model that I mentioned. Right now in the 2016 manual, we have 6 domains. Program leadership is all about having a program director who functions to kind of move forward with your residency or fellowship. They'll communicate outcomes about your residents and your fellows to other people. They get people on board. They are essential in running your program. Organizational enculturation, the second domain, is really all about onboarding the right people to get the right fit in your organization. This is one of my favorite domains. We ask you in there, for instance, how does your program's mission, vision, and values align with your organization? Just kind of tell us what's the connection. How do new learners in your program learn about the mission, vision, values of your organization? So it's a fun area to write to and describe what you're doing. Development and design is the nuts and bolts of how you've developed your program and how you run your program. So you'll tell us there how long your program is, what your curriculum content is, how you evaluate your learner. So this is a big portion of your self-study document. So is practice-based learning the next domain that comes. Practice-based learning is where you tell us about the learning that takes place usually at the point of care, which for the most part is the bedside. So how do you precept your learners to their new roles? How do you address gaps in learning that occur, etc.? Nursing professional development is our 5th domain in the 2016 manual. In the 2020 manual, you'll notice that the NPD domain was taken out and it just kind of wrapped up into the other domains. But this is really where you tell us about developmental opportunities that are available to nurses in your whole organization. And then the last domain in the 2016 manual is quality outcomes. So quality outcomes are where you tell us about your processes for setting goals and refining your program over time, and also about what your program goals are and related outcomes that you've been measuring for a period of time. You can see that the whole conceptual model is set underneath of the framework of Benner's novice to expert theory. So we do expect that you're bringing learners along this continuum of novice to hopefully advanced beginner competent by the time they finish your program. Our steps to accreditation, we want you to develop a program first. You can use vendor-based curriculum if you'd want. Again, that's something that you purchase and apply in part or in whole, or you can create your own. You've seen the majority of our programs have created their own curriculum, their own design of how they want to learn, how they want to run their program that's best for their learners. Then you operationalize that program in your hospital, in your clinics, in your home health settings, however you choose. You run it to where at least one cohort or one group of learners has graduated or finished. And then based on our criteria, you'll do a gap analysis to see if you have any gaps. If you have any gaps, you'll shore them up. You'll create tools if needed, make some tweaks to your program, and apply for accreditation, which is, again, that voluntary process where we would review your program based on our criteria. When you're in your development and design phase, what we suggest is that you download the manual for Ptap and you download the gap analysis tool and create your program, if you can, early on using the standards. Accreditation standards, if anything, are best for creating robust programs. We consider accreditation kind of icing on the cake. So we care actually less that you get accredited and more that you use the criteria as a framework to ensure that you're creating the best possible program that can be. So just to call out, there is alignment between ANCC programs now. So between us and our magnet recognition program that ANCC runs and created, Ptap accreditation now actually satisfies Structural Empowerment 9 or SE9. There's a portion in the new magnet manual that was just released that states you can provide evidence of a nationally accredited transition to practice program or your award certificate in place of having to write for Structural Empowerment 9. If you haven't read SE9, I would check it out if you're considering magnet or if you're already magnet recognized. It's intense in terms of you have to select and write about 3 different types of learners, how you're supporting them throughout their transition. So you'd write about the 6 elements of the transition program that we just talked about, our 6 domains, how you would support, for instance, new graduate nurses and newly hired experienced nurses and nurses transferring within your organization, or maybe you choose APRNs or nurse managers to kind of draw out. So a lot of our Ptap accredited organizations are using this time to get their transition to practice program accredited so that it will help them with their magnet recognition journey. If you do have questions specifically about the magnet recognition program, we encourage you to reach out to our sister department, to reach out to your specific magnet analysts. They can talk you through their criteria better than we can. So let's look at the elements of our application process. How does it occur? What should you do before, during, after, etc. you apply? So before you apply, you want to make sure you download our application manual, which really goes over all of our criteria and everything that I'm going to give you detail about. Our 2016 application manual will be in effect through the end of this year. So the organizations or interested applicants I mentioned before who are going through our current February 2019 cycle are writing to the 2016 criteria. In May, August, and November, they'll all write and submit to 2016. If you're interested in applying to a cycle that starts in February 2020 or after, you want to make sure you download our new 2020 application manual that was just released. So it was actually released after I made these slides. So I'm happy to share the direct link to that manual with y'all as well. So you'd want to review the manual, review any addendums that have come out for that specific manual, and download our gap analysis tool. The gap analysis tool is just a kind of a quick and dirty checklist that you can use to find any major gaps that would prevent you from seeking accreditation with our program. The last thing I would say to do before you apply is to attend a workshop. These are not required, but they're extremely beneficial. We have many organizations who've discussed that they would not have been successful in their accreditation process if they had not attended a workshop. The workshop is where we'll go through all of the criteria in the manual one by one. We describe what our accreditation language means and ways that you could possibly meet that criteria. We give you ideas. The other good thing about the workshop is you get access to the workshop learning community, and there's hundreds of organizations in there across the US right now. The workshop learning community is just a place where you can ask questions of other applicants or other program directors across the US. So for instance, if you want to see a contract that they may use with their new residents, you're just wondering, hey, what's the contract look like at your hospital? Do you have one? What's the process? How much do you pay in this contract? How many years do you expect them to give you in exchange for participating in your residency? Those are types of questions that you can ask in that learning community, and that we've had numerous people share ideas with one another. And the next thing you'll do really as part of that pre-application phase is just pick an application cycle that you want to submit to. The way our program is currently ran, you submit your application 4 months prior to submitting your self-study document. So you can see, for example, our February 2019 cycle that just started, we accepted applications for that cycle back in October of 2018. So October 1st of 2018, we open the application. You submit the application form that we'll look at to our email inbox. We review it, we determine if you're eligible, and then we get back to you and plan what the next steps are with you. 4 months later then, on February 1st, 2019, was when those applicants submitted their self-study documents. So I already mentioned this, but our remaining 2019 cycles will be for August self-study submission, which will accept applications on April 1st, and then November self-study submission, which will accept applications on July 1st. Just kind of the inside note to give you guys, our application cycles fill sometimes within hours. We have a lot of demand for our program, and we are growing how many applicants we can take per cycle, but we do have a cap currently. So I remember our December 2018 cycle closed. The day it opened, it closed by 9 a.m. So basically within half an hour, we had reached capacity. So if you have interest in a specific cycle, I always recommend reaching out to our program, and our email is at the end of these slides. Reach out to our program, let us know your interest. We can't guarantee you a spot in a cycle. However, we can make sure that we put you on our communication list and that we keep in close contact with you. So our process in that pre-application phase, we talked about all of the resources available to you to help determine what the right time is for you to go through the application and accreditation review. Phase 1 for us is that you submit your application, and then 4 months later you submit your self-study document. Phase 2, our appraiser team will review your document and ask for additional documentation if needed. We'll conduct a survey of your learners as well during that first month of your review. So you'll submit your self-study on the first of the cycle month that you're due to submit in, and within that month we'll launch a survey of your resident or your fellow group, and we'll survey them about their experiences in your program. Phase 3 is validation of your documentation. This actually occurs on a virtual visit. I mentioned that we used to host on-site visits, reviews between our appraisers and your teams. We determined, though, that the virtual visit was an appropriate way to conduct that review and to get the information that we needed for our commission to make a decision. The final phase 4 really is just about the commission taking the information that the appraisers submit in review of your program and self-study, along with your survey results, and making a decision on the outcome of your accreditation. This whole process from application to decision is 10 months or less. So you'll submit your application, and within 10 months, you will get a decision from the Commission on Accreditation Practice Transition Programs about the outcome. We've been trending less time. We've been trending about 8 months. However, the 10-month mark is our standard that we're held to, and so that's why I share that. These remaining slides just kind of break down each of those phases that we went over. They give you a little bit more information about the phases and give you some resources or tools related. So if you've done that gap analysis, possibly attended a workshop, you decided you're ready to become accredited, you want to download the application form and check it out. This will help you to determine your eligibility, or kind of how your program fits into our accreditation framework. You'll submit your application form when it's due to our Ptap inbox. We'll review your eligibility and confirm it with a letter back to you, and then we'll invoice you the application fee. All of the fees are outlined on our website in case you're curious about those. What we do then is we'll host 2 different applicant calls with you. Really, they're kind of like an interactive webinar. We'll share a resource center link with you as well, which has our self-study template in it that you're required to use when you submit your self-study document. When you're writing your self-study, you oftentimes start before you actually submit your application form. So that's the first thing. Usually you start gathering all this stuff before you submit your application. You're gathering your program overview pieces. The program overview section of the manual in 2016 asks for a lot of lists of people, graphs of data, or just things that you can collect before you apply. Your narrative section of your document, where you're writing to the domains from program leadership through quality outcomes, it has two parts to it. So the first part, you're asked to describe your process, or kind of think of it as your policy of how you meet that standard. So I like to think of the who, what, when, where, why of running your program. That's the description of your process for the criteria. The second piece is to demonstrate how. So you're asked to give a specific example. I like to think of this as the prove or the lived experience type of response. So if you tell us your process in one of the criteria is that you have a steering committee who meets once a month, who reviews your data, et cetera, then your demonstrate in your second part should be on May 1st of 2019, we met, we reviewed this data, and this is how we changed our program. So they relate to one another. We spend a lot more time on the self-study again in the workshops and a little bit as well on those applicant phone calls. Submitting your document in step 2, we really ask you to submit electronically if possible. We send to our appraisers, who that expert appraiser team does a review of what you've submitted and scores based on our criteria. They will have a consensus call among their team to determine whether or not they need additional documentation turned in from your group. They only ask for additional documentation if there's a point that they need to clarify a piece of your process, or possibly that you didn't answer part of the criteria and they need to amplify your description or your example. This does distinguish us from other programs because there is no cost of additional documentation with our ANCC Ptap review. There are certain credentials or accreditation reviews where the process of additional documentation costs you extra. It does not with us. The survey I already mentioned, so this is unique to our process. Many other accrediting bodies, they require on-site visits where they'll interview all your residents or collect additional information, which can be very costly to your organization. So our resident survey and our virtual visit there are ways of validating your document. So the virtual visit is an amazing time, where you get to conference with the appraiser team. You'll involve a lot of different people from your program. If you're a multi-site program, meaning you ran over possibly more than one site in a health system, there will be different persons from each of those sites on the call as well. So we like to say this is just your time to brag. Tell everybody all of the amazing work that you've done. Talk as much as you can about your excellent program and how you meet the criteria. Consultants are not allowed on this call. So we talked about vendor curriculum programs that you can purchase. So if you use Vizient or Verson or HealthStream, etc., if you use one of those curriculum, those vendors are not allowed on the call with you. You can have consultants as well who help you write your document, format your document, etc. They're not allowed on the call with you. The reason being, we don't accredit a vendor program or a consultant program. We're accrediting the program that occurs at your hospital or at your site. And then the last thing is just that COA PTP, they make the final decision on your level of accreditation. There are different levels of accreditation that can be achieved, and those are all outlined as well. on the website. So what's the future state of practice transition, or really just transition to practice programs? For us, we just released our 2020 manual, so that's a huge celebration point. We've taken the 2016 manual and revised it so that we've collapsed a lot of the redundant criteria that we were asking for. We've also expanded some of the criteria to ask for more things or more specific things related to programs. So again, I'm happy to share the direct link to that manual. All of our manuals are available for free ebook download, meaning they don't cost you to purchase. You can always select that option to download the free ebook. And just the rapid growth of the program, I mentioned this, but we believe we haven't even yet reached the tipping point of accrediting transition to practice programs in the US. We believe this year we may even get our first international applicant whereby we'll accredit or go through the process to accredit their RN residency or fellowship programs. It's our 5th year, I mentioned that. So if you would want to be part of our celebrations coming up, you please feel free to provide me with your contact information and we'll get you on our notification emails. We just found out, again, prior to making these slides, I didn't know that this was going to occur. We just found out about a week ago. For the first time ever at this year's Magnet Conference, we will be hosting a Ptap Summit. So the summit will focus on best practices from our accredited and applicant organizations. So look for more information to come about that exciting event. It will probably sell out, so hopefully get registered as soon as you can. If you're already attending the Magnet Conference rather, this will be a great event to go to just prior. And then if you have questions right now, entertain them. But I've been mentioning throughout our email inbox, should you need anything, we can be contacted at practicetransition@ana.org. If we can help you in any way, we will. So absolutely, please feel free to reach out. There are 3 of us on our team. So there's myself, I'm our senior analyst. Our director, who you may know, is Dr. Sherry Cosme. And then we do have a specialist as well who you may interact with if you have questions about workshops and fees, and her name is Jewel Saunders. Our direct link on our Nursing World website is here as well. I mentioned we're part of the ANA Enterprise, and we have combined our websites. So that combination kind of makes the website a little bit cumbersome just to drill all the way down to Ptap, but this direct link should help you should you need anything. So that's it from me. We want to open it, I think, to questions.
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions for Megan, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box or the question box, and then I will be able to see those and we can address them. It's a little bit easier than unmuting everybody and trying to get you one by one. So if you have any questions, we'll stay on here live for a couple minutes and go ahead and type them in.
I will type in there the direct link to our 2020 manual. That should be helpful if anyone's considering accrediting next year or beyond. So I'll type that in there.
Great. And if there's any questions, if you're watching this later and during, you can certainly email us at ONA or the email here at Practice Transition at ANA, and we can get you in contact with the person you need if you're not here for this live session.
Yeah, we're available. if you need anything. But thank you for that connection to your state. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I have a love for Ohio, Pennsylvania people.
Mhm.
So,
And I'm from New Jersey, so I have a love for Pennsylvania too.
yeah, don't love the weather though. I'm from
Yeah.
Erie, Pennsylvania. We're the very, very snowy place, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I get asked about is we're a little bit different than some of the other ANCC programs where we will accredit a transition or practice program that occurs in more than one place. So for instance, if you're part of a health system, maybe there's 13 different hospitals in this system. If your program was running the same way at each site, so each of the 13 sites, it would be possible for us to accredit your RN residency that occurs in those 13 places under one application, under one review. So that is, an opportunity. When you're looking at the manual, you'll see that we ask you to tell us if you're single site or if you're multi-site, and just know that that's an option. I would say to give you some advice or some guidance that you basically in your application, if you're a multi-site program, you tell us who's in and who's out. So if not all 13 sites are running your program the same way, following our criteria, then you could maybe ask us to accredit the program at the 10 out of the 13 sites that are following. So there's always options for us to work with you and explain what may best fit your program as you're running it.
That's really interesting, Megan. I didn't realize that, but I think that would definitely apply to a lot of the bigger hospital systems. I know just in Ohio, we have quite a few that are just huge, massive systems that might have multiple programs going on. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's something I get asked quite frequently about, how do we determine if that's a good fit for us or not? And so I would say just having those open conversations among your health system. We've had very high performing health systems who that model fit well for them because everybody was on the same page. We've had other, maybe more dysfunctional health systems where they say, that's not possible for us. We're not all there yet. Maybe it was a newly formed system and they just acquired some of the sites. So it's you can divide it up in a way that works for you. The other thing I get asked about is can you accredit a transition to practice program that is specific to its practice setting? So let's say that at my hospital we've decided to create an RN residency just for pediatrics because that's an area that we've had a lot of issue in, and maybe we have dedicated educators, dedicated NPD specialists who've created a robust program. So when you download that application form and check it out, we can accredit a program that occurs in only one practice setting. Again, you just essentially tell us what's the scope of your program, what types of units is it ran on. So you can say kind of who's in and who's out again.
Megan, I did get one question. Someone asked about these slides, and I said that everyone attending live will get the recording as well. But were you planning on making these slides available as a PDF?
Yes, yeah, you can. I don't know if you want me to do that or if you want to do that, but we're happy to allow that to happen.
Okay, then I will send those out to you guys as well. I don't see any other questions right now, and that's totally fine. I'm sure a couple of you probably will have questions once you go back to your team and think about all this and if you're interested in the process. So, like we both said, we're definitely here to provide information for you after, and we'll have all of these resources sent to you for the future. But if no one else has any questions, then we can sign off and give you guys a couple minutes back to your day.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the offer to present for your group.
Yeah, thank you so much, Megan. We really appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.